So a bunch of young kids with particular abilities stuck in this large mansion house, if you will, being taken care of by an older, powerful being. How is this not an X-Men movie? That being said though, these kids have much better off than the X-Men kids because they get to spend day in and day out with Evergreen. Nice. And with that, I'm walking you to another episode of The Real Mentor, where my goal, as always, is to enhance your movie watching experience. So Tim Burton tries to come back to form with his newest movie, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now, Tim Burton, who I loved early on, mid 80s to mid 90s, was one of the best directors around. He had a certain style, certain flair. You knew it was a Tim Burton movie, that kind of gothic look. He was great with stop motion and animation. Of course, there's great movies like Beetlejuice and Batman and Ed Wood, for example, Edward Scissorhands. But lately, he's been kind of swinging and missing for the most part. This movie, the trailers look kind of interesting. It did look like Tim Burton's version of the X-Men. Unfortunately, he's not back to form. Now, off the bat, let me say this is not a terrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not a very good one. It's very middle of the road, a mixed bag of good and bad things all together. I don't think Tim Burton really did what he needed to do with the source material based off a children's book, which from what I hear is very interesting. And the story is very interesting and had a cool mythology in there and an interesting world that could have been created. And I think Tim Burton just failed to hit the mark here. Now, the basic premise, you have Asia Butterfield's character who, whose grandfather has kept a lot of secrets from him, and he recently passes away in a mysterious fashion. So Asia Butterfield tries to figure out what happened to him. He figures out that all this time his grandfather's stories that he's been told about these kids with powers and his old home where he grew up is actually real. Of course, you have these kids who are living with Evergreen, who's taking care of them, protects them, teaches them, and she has abilities to not only become like a bird or a falcon of some sort, but she has the ability to create a time loop for which the kids actually live in. So they're reliving the same day back in 1943, and she's able to reset time every single day. And apparently, she's one of many who set up these kind of time loops where only these kids can actually enter and live in. Now, let me start with what's good about this movie. I'll give Tim Burton credit. His movies don't always hit the marks, particularly lately, but the movie looks great and has his stamp, his certain style to it. It looks good. Special effects are really well done. These creatures are just typical Tim Burton. If you're a fan of what he does creatively, visually, you'll be a fan of this. This is an example, one of the things that he put on screen, which is a really cool looking creature. And the kids, the powers are really unique and interesting and all that. The characters themselves aren't that interesting, but their abilities are. Now, Evergreen, I think she's probably the best part about the movie. She steals this show, and she should. She's great in almost everything she does. She's beautiful, no doubt about it. But she's great in this role, and she really steals the show, and she elevates every scene she's in, which is it's kind of a bit disappointing that in the third act she was kind of non-existent. Now, besides Evergreen, we also have Samuel Jackson, Samuel Jackson is the man at all times. And he plays the evil character who's going after the kids, and he needs them to just kind of convoluted plan for him to kind of live forever, and he eats their eyes. And again, which I'll get to the issues in a minute, but his character's cool. It's over the top, it's campy, but it's supposed to be, and it works for the movie. I wish, Samuel Jackson's better off when he's swearing up and down, but this is a kid's movie at the end of the day, so I get it. But he's cool and he's fun every time he's on screen. For the limited time he's there, he's actually fun to watch. Now, where the movie really fails, it's the plot, it's the writing, and a little bit of Tim Burton's direction. This movie is a little over 2 hours long. It's a kid's movie. It's kind of long for a kid. I can't imagine kids wanting to sit through this. Not because of the length, not just because of the length. I mean, like the title alone, it's a little bit too long, but it's a little bit slow. It takes 20-30 minutes to really get going at all. There's so much exposition, and it's not interestingly done. There's a lot going on in this story, and it would have been better off just giving us a taste of this world and focusing on just to make it more intimate with the kids and Evergreen's character and Butterfield's character. But it just goes off in all these time loops and things that's going on. Who's Samuel Jackson and his plan is all over the place. And again, it just doesn't work. And I had a hard time following it. I couldn't imagine what a kid would sit through thinking what the hell is going on in this movie. And besides that, Tim Burton forgot to give us something magical, something fun, with something that he used to do back in the day. It kind of falls flat. It's a little bit boring. You know, the action scenes towards the end are okay. There's one cool scene, but it's kind of mixed up with some techno type music to it, and it's very out of place. And the score itself isn't even that great in a movie of this type. And it's unfortunate because there's a really cool story in there somewhere. The characters are okay, the powers are cool, it looks great. There are good things. Also, good moments of levity. It's very humorous, and it's humor that's you know, made for kids and for adults alike. But again, it's just not a great story. It doesn't really stick out. This is one you're gonna watch in the theaters and forget about it in 2 hours. So ultimately, am I gonna recommend this? It'll fall short of me recommending this movie to you guys. You're better off watching this at home, catch it on cable, Netflix, VOD, whatever the case is. And even then, I barely recommend you do that. Out in theaters though, I wouldn't, definitely not. And if you are gonna go see it, don't waste your time with 3D. The screen today was shown in 3D and it's basically worthless. So you guys are gonna watch Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children? Too long of a title. Let me know, comment below as always. And of course, subscribe below and feed my need to go to the movies and talk about it afterwards. See you guys next time.